I'm Keon.
And this is inevitable. That podcast recorded at our funeral because this week we watched It's Your Funeral,
By Michael Cramoy.
directed by Robert Asher.
And it on December 8th, 1967.
Yes, here we are at the
At our funeral. Yeah, see, in terms of like chronology, this one probably comes after Dance of the Dead, which is good. You know, you don't want to have your funeral before your death.
Are you just saying that because the title is It's Your Funeral and in that one he's dead?
Yeah, well, it's like, you know, there's ample time because in Dance of the Dead, you know, you see we didn't know that we were already dead. And this ordering of the episodes gives you ample time to accept your death before your funeral.
That's true. I guess. I mean, yeah, actually, on that topic, I actually did think going into this based on the title that it was going to be more of a direct sequel to Dawn of the Dead than it ended up being.
Than the 0% sequel that it was.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Again, going into this one, I had like basically no memory of it. And it ended up, I guess I liked it, but again, I think, you know, there's a reason why I don't remember this batch of episodes very well. And I think this is
I
just
actually quite enjoyed this episode.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad by any means. It wasn't, I don't think it's the best.
Perhaps not. I think it strays pretty close to greatness, though. And I'll explain why at the end. I'll explain at the end how I think this could have been the greatest Prisoner episode, in my opinion.
Well, they all could have
to have been made. With some very subtle tweaks to this episode, but as the episode aired, it's not great. I mean, it's good, but not great,
Yeah, I didn't really have too much behind the scenes for this either. Just that, like, Patrick McGoohan caused a bunch of problems on set, like, as he seems to always do.
But this week it was apparently, like, worse than normal. So much so much so that when the actors for this were interviewed later for something, they, like, directly call out Patrick McGoohan for being an a-hole and a dick and like just being really unpleasant to work for. They so Annette, Andre, and Mark Eden and Nesbitt were all interviewed for a documentary for the re-release of The Prisoner in 2007. And like apparently Annette Andre specifically calls out McGoohan and saying that McGoohan was like at fault for all of the shouting matches that occurred on set this week. And I also read that a couple crew members assert that McGoohan was basically under pressure at this point in the production and like had a nervous breakdown filming this episode. And not only that, but he like fired Robert Asher from directing, or Robert Asher quit. I was a little unclear because it seems to be a little bit there's conflicting information on what happened. But either way, apparently he basically bailed on directing this episode halfway through and McGoohan took over. So
yeah, there you go.
Mark Eden apparently says that McGoohan lost control and nearly strangled him during the fight scene.
Yeah, I read that too.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the only production information I have for this, although also apparently this is the only episode of the show that's written by Michael Cramoy. I don't know how you actually say it, but apparently he's written for a couple other British shows, including The Saint, I think I read.
Yeah, I didn't have any more production stuff either, but I did have a little interesting tidbit from our behind the scenes stuff, / the stuff we look up. So junkyard.blog, which is one of the sites that we've been using as a source for the past couple of weeks. One of the two writers on there was like, said something that really connected with me. They were like, I watch these episodes at the last minute the night before. And that's how, like, I know whether they were good or not, because if they hold my attention, then, at the last minute, right before we publish these blogs, then I know they were good. And if they don't, then I know they were bad. And this one didn't.
Okay. Did that resonate because you do the same thing?
Yes. Although, props to them, because watching an episode at the last minute and writing a blog post about it is a lot more difficult than watching an episode at the last minute and talking about it for an hour.
I guess. I mean, there's a lot more of a freeform nature to the podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Than to a blog post.
Yeah. Yeah, like the podcast is like what you put out as like the first like word spew draft of a blog post that you then revise into something better.
Do you think we revised this?
No, we don't. That's the thing. Like, you can't really revise the podcast, but like with a blog post, you'd say like things that, are altered or changed or revised, redrafted. And this is like sort of akin to that first draft,
I mean, I could revise the podcast. I could just cut it up so badly that we say whatever I want us to say.
You two poop the podcast.
Yeah, can you imagine just a really, really like cut together version of me going, like, just cut myself together to go, The Prisoner is a terrible TV program.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's all I had for behind the scenes.
Same.
So now we're forced to discuss in front of the scenes.
What? I mean, we're not forced to at all. We could just...
What?
We could...
You don't have a gun pointed at your head right now? What?
Who's holding a gun to your head? Yeah. Patrick McGowan. I was going to say we're not forced to. We could just do what we always do when we get into an episode that is just so mediocre that we don't want to talk about it at all, and we just go on tangents for an hour.
No, I don't think we're going to do that here. Mostly because the convoluted plot is going to keep us hooked in.
Well, I am going to go on a tangent when we get to Kosho, because just what even was that? But we'll get there. We'll get there.
Okay, so the first thing we get in the episode is that the supervisor is back. He's been rehired. He's been reinstated. No, I don't know. It's probably just...
Well, depending on like the chronological order of all of this nonsense.
Yeah, I'd like to think that, the people in charge of the village just like... After number 2 calls and is like, hey, like, I'm not fit to be number 2, and I resign. Like, they're just like, all right, well, all the changes you made are now going to be undone. So they just rehire the supervisor.
Yeah, that's kind of what I imagined in my head, was that they're just like, well, number 2 lost his mind, so let's just undo everything.
Maybe that was part of number 6's plan. Maybe he was like, maybe if they undo all the changes that number 2 has initiated, they'll undo my coming to the village and take me back.
Yeah, except they don't do that.
No, they don't, yeah. Also, it wasn't this number 2 who brought him to the village.
I mean, we don't know that. We don't know that.
Okay, that's true, yeah, I guess we don't know it.
Especially maybe the number 2...
time loop.
Well, yes, but also maybe the number 2 changed, like, in the middle of the opening title sequence. Like, there was a number 2 that ordered him being captured, and then while he was in transit to the village, number 2 just changed, and the new number 2 was just forced to deal with this, like, guy that the previous number 2 had ordered captured.
Maybe, yeah. So what they're doing in the control room is they're surveilling number 6. Someone walks into his house, number 53, and like wakes him up. And he's like, hey, what are you doing? Except he, instead of saying that, he yells it because number 53 is a woman, and number 6 / Patrick McGowan wouldn't be caught dead, like,
Being
not,
kind to a woman.
yeah, not like yelling at a woman.
Yeah, well, so, I mean, she kind of just like walks into his house, literally just walks into his house and is like, yo, uh, wake up. And he's like, how did you get in? And she's like, well, I just walked in. And then number 2 turns to the supervisor and is like, how did she just get in? And he's like, oh, we left the door unlocked so that she could get in without knocking. And he's like, why wouldn't you want her to knock? And the supervisor's like, well, sometimes he doesn't answer knocks. And the guy's like, yeah, but now he suspects us because she just walked in and didn't knock.
Yeah, so he gets a little mad at the supervisor here. But this is never really, like, touched on. It's like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like this could be the setup for, like, a series of screw-ups by the supervisor resulting in some conflict, but it doesn't really go that way.
Resulting in him getting fired into Anvil.
Yeah.
Which is still such a good name for an episode that was kind of wasted on such an underwhelming episode, but anyway.
Anyway, I really like this number 2 right off the bat.
Yeah,
Maybe
me too.
because he's played by Darren Nesbitt, a.k.a. Tagana.
Just throwing it out there. Well, in this episode, I realized he looks a lot like Jeff Goldblum. Maybe that was just me.
Yeah, I don't think he really looked like Jeff Goldblum. Mainly because, like, his most striking feature is his, like, vibrant yellow hair, which Jeff Goldblum doesn't have. So that kind of detracts, you know, even if their facial structure is the same or their voice or whatever, like, just that fact alone kind of, I don't know, detracts from that in a way.
One of the websites I looked at asserted that this was a toupee. So,
Huh.
no proof.
Yeah, as most of these sites, you know, do. Just assert things with no source, no proof, kind of like we do, except I feel like we call it out that we have no source, or that we're citing things with no source. But one thing about this number 2 is that his teeth are actually yellower than his hair. I don't know if you noticed that, but his teeth are like really yellow, like really, really yellow.
I did notice that. I was like, I wonder if he drinks a lot of coffee.
Or just has never brushed.
Also true. Who knows? All of the above. I don't know.
Anyway, number 53 faints. And when she wakes up minutes later, number 6 is all eyes and all ears, willing to hear what she has to say, which is that there's an assassination attempt about to go down.
And number 6 is like, yeah, right. As if.
And
number 6 is super suspicious of number 53.
Well, I think if she pushed the fact that there was, or if she pushed her claim that there was going to be an assassin, he probably wouldn't have believed it, but she just goes like, fine, believe whatever you want, and just leaves. And he's like, wait a minute, what?
Well, also, like, she faints because she got drugged by the village.
Right.
And number 2 is controlling this whole thing. Well, not controlling, but he knows it's going to happen.
Yeah, they actually drugged her, like, yesterday in regard to, like, when this is taking place. Super slow acting.
Well, it's not slow acting. It's because the drug only activates when she gets nervous or, like, heightened emotions, number 2 says. So that's why they put it in her the day before she went to see number 6, and then it would activate when she gets really anxious about number 6 not believing her.
Yeah, true. Right after this, we go into another surveillance scene where we get like an overview of number 6's day, which is that So he wakes up, and the first thing he does is take a walk around the village or something. But then the next thing he does is he gets a stunt double to do some exercise for him, so he doesn't have to do it himself.
He does literal gymnastics. Like in universe, if you believe this is actually number 6 is just a world-class gymnast, apparently.
Yeah, he does some you'd have to train doing this for a long while to be able to do it level of stuff here. It's clearly, on screen, it's very clearly a stunt double. That is not Patrick McGoohan, and you can tell.
Yep.
I do like how this kind of reestablishes that number 6 has his own just little area out in the woods that he likes to go to. Where he goes if he ever needs to, chop down a tree or something, or just go to, do his workout.
I don't know why he built his own workout arena, in the forest, when I'm sure the village has a gym, right?
Yeah, and we even saw that the village's statues are out there in the woods, too, watching him. So, what's the point?
I mean, he just wants to be fancy that he built a gymnast's pole, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. The next thing he does is he goes to the retirement home and plays chess or something. Or no, he eats breakfast and then he does that.
Yep, and then he sits for a painting.
Yeah, does he do this every day? Is that part of his routine? Is being a model every single day?
Well, so this whole scene, I kind of got the sense was their computer's prediction of what was going to happen.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
That we were in the sort of computer reality here.
Yeah.
Kind of just adds more theory to the potential time loop or something, the fact that they can just completely predict his motions for the day. Just saying.
Yeah, how many matrices deep do you think the prisoner is? Which layer of the matrix is it? 6, of course. One thing though that number 6 learns while being painted is the existence of jammers.
Yeah, so in the very first time we see this in the computer simulation, I guess, he doesn't talk to the guy who's painting him at all. But when we actually go through his morning, the person who brings the envelope to number 2 says that when he sits for a painting, he's probably just sitting for a painting, but potentially doing something more insidious. And in the real life, it turns out he is doing something more insidious. More insidious is not the words they use, but I don't remember the exact quote.
More insidious, directed by James Wan.
More insidious. That's what they should have called Insidious too.
I know.
But in the real life, he's finding out about the jammers because number 53 at the beginning mentioned jammers, I believe.
I think so, yeah. And so, it turns out the village has a secret society of people dedicated to creating the world's greatest jam. And they're known as jammers. No, I'm just kidding.
Man, I really thought that you were actually going to say it's a secret society dedicated to worshipping Kool-Aid jammers. Oh the Kool-Aid knockoffs of the Capri Sun pouches. A more obscure reference.
Yeah, I forgot about those.
I only remember because I've had them this calendar year.
Oh, wow. Damn. Wow. Thinking back to when we were kids, how not health conscious people were, I don't know, I feel like kids back then, probably still today, but maybe to a larger extent back then, are just our parents are just yeah, have your Kool-Aid in a pouch and your sugary, whatever snack that is, terrible for you.
Here's your pre-made Kool-Aid with added sugar.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, too, is, the Kool-Aid that they sell, and even the Gatorade, even sports drinks and stuff like Gatorade is, the pre-made ones they actually sell in the fine print on the back all say dilute by half, So like when you actually make them with the powder that nobody uses anymore, like the if you follow the directions on that, you're getting a way more diluted one than what they sell in the bottle. The bottles are actually supposed to be diluted, but nobody does that.
I saw a tweet once about someone who like diluted apple juice for their kid by like half, and they were like, "Man, this kid's mind is going to be blown when he goes to his friend's house and has pure, undiluted apple juice."
You ever drink those juices that are like that they dilute by half and like actually mean it? Where like if you don't, it's like just drinking like straight nectar.
You're just drinking straight syrup.
Yeah.
Yum.
It's like not even watery. It's like completely viscous. Like turn the glass upside down, it doesn't even spill. It just kind of slowly like inches out.
That's like in my freezer right now. So vodka doesn't freeze, but I've got like this flavored vodka that's like grapefruit flavored, and I put that in the freezer because like, oh, vodka doesn't freeze. But apparently the method by which they flavored the vodka must have changed the composition of the vodka just enough such that putting it into the freezer makes it more viscous.
Yeah. Well, hey, you can have vodka pops. Just do that like ice tray thing. Stick some toothpicks in. There you go.
Probably have to dilute it a little more to get it to actually freeze over, but
Yeah.
great. Thanks for that image.
Look, all I'm saying is that this is the next big thing. Cake pops were big for a while. And those were making
still are big.
Yeah, and those are making bank because it's like $4 for like half a bite of cake. So there you go, just
You're paying for the difficulty in creating the cake pop itself, I suppose.
Yeah, it's more you're paying for the novelty of it.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty much.
Anyway, what jammers actually are is a society of people who come up with fake escape plans or something like that. Or fake, like, plans to sabotage things that the village tries to do in order to sow discord.
And the reason why 53 mentioned this at the beginning was because she was trying to get 6 to believe her by saying that she was a jammer, so they didn't believe anything she said anymore. And they don't trust her. But number 6 was like, what's a jammer? I don't know. That doesn't mean anything to me.
I think Junkyard.blog pointed out like a good point here with the jammers is that like if they just keep faking, stuff that the village doesn't want them to do, why not just fake like escape attempts or, stuff like that and then just actually escape for real at some point. The village will just ignore it and like won't do anything because they think it's fake.
That I thought of that during the episode, but that requires you to believe that the jammers are a real thing and not just something that like number 2 created to fool the other number, that like is not just something that's already controlled by like the village. Because I kind of got the impression that these people who are claiming to be jammers and who are explaining what jammers are like actually just under the employ of number 2.
Oh yeah, I mean that's what this whole thing is. It's a plot by one number 2 to kill the other. So I don't think he was actually taking advantage of a pre-existing organization called the Jammers. I think this was all just part of the plan, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. I don't know if you noted, but Nesbitt, I guess, decided to introduce this character tick to his number 2 where he constantly takes his glasses on and off. And then when I went to read, I think it was Anorak Zone, but might have been Pop Apostle afterwards, they were like, don't do a drinking game with number 2 taking his glasses off and on because you'll be knocked out 10 minutes into the episode.
No, I did not notice that whatsoever.
his glasses also have insanely thick frames. I don't know if you noticed that either.
Yeah, they did.
Oh, jeez.
Anyway, the guy doing the painting turns it around, and you think it's going to be a portrait of number two, but I guess it is a portrait of him, but it's just an abstract portrait, a very abstract one.
It is an abstract portrait.
Anyway, number six's watch stops working. I forget like what context it is that makes him realize this.
No, you can't skip the Kosho. That only happens after the Kosho match because it's during the Kosho match that number 100, I think it is, replaces the watch.
Yeah, so we get a longer and more detailed bout here.
Right.
And God, what a sport. What a martial art. Yeah.
Patrick McGoohan invented it, and you can tell that he should probably stick to using his creative mind for coming up with plots and not sports.
Yeah, it is. It's so weird. Just the fact they're on trampolines, it looks very uncomfortable, like to actually be a part of, you know?
The sloped walls along the edge that you can just freely, like, free run across.
That you can just Naruto run across.
Yeah, exactly. Can't stop me now.
Well, I feel like I do think that is actually a good, like, element to the match because and this is never explicitly stated, but I'm pretty sure the goal is to throw your opponent into the little pool of water.
Yes.
So if you are on the ledge and not the trampoline, that's much harder to do. So while that gives you some safety, it also makes it more difficult to throw your opponent into the water. Which also probably explains why they kind of just jump at each other from one trampoline to the other and try and hit each other over that little pool because they're trying to knock. While that's dangerous for them, they're also trying to knock the other guy into the water. Which all of this really just explains why number 6 likes Kosho so much, or why he has such, penchant for it, is that anyone playing this game, or anyone playing Kosho or doing Kosho, I should say, because I guess it's a martial art rather than a game, is how the show kind of frames it. Anyone playing this would not want to fall into the water. That would be like an uncomfortable, like losing the match gives you a feeling of discomfort, but not for number 6. Number 6 is A-okay with being drenched and having clothes on at the same time. So, it's really a win-win for him.
Everything about Kosho confuses me.
Everything about it, like there's something wrong about like every aspect of it. There's something that just makes you go like, that just repulses you about everything like about it, from watching it to imagining yourself being a part of it, to the rules, to the context, to the fact that it's even in this show. Like there's just something not right about it.
I mean, this led me to learn about the apparently infamous 1967 press conference about The Prisoner. I don't know if you know about this conference, Keon.
No, I don't.
But it was brought to my attention by Midnight Only because Midnight Only mentions that the Kosho uniform in this episode is what Patrick McGoohan wore to this conference. And it's like, So I followed the link, and they talk about the conference pretty extensively in their write-up about Once Upon a Time, which I skipped all that just to the part about the conference, because the conference was put on in September of 1967, right before The Prisoner debuted. And so two reporters wrote about it in a book called The Prisoner, a televisionary masterpiece. That's quite a word, televisionary. And they basically describe it as they got to see Arrival, and then after the screening room, Patrick McGoohan was dressed in the Kosho uniform behind bars and answered all their questions from behind bars. Apparently, he was super evasive and asked more questions than they did. And then once that part of the conference was over, McGowan came out from the bars and invited them all to a buffet held in the control room where all the food was on number 2's semicircular table, and all the food was served by maids, by people dressed like the maids in the village. And then McGowan came back dressed as a cowboy, apparently to film Living in Harmony. And apparently all the journalists were just baffled by this whole thing. They just were so confused by the entire sequence of events.
Oh my god. Wow. You know, if we didn't already know that Patrick McGowan was an actual madman and, like, probably not a very pleasant person to be around, we would know now.
It's true. Confirmed.
God. What a wild thing to have happened.
I kind of wish I was there. Kind of want to see it. Anyway, Midnight Only also has a little thing about the word Kosho and how it sounds Japanese, and it mentions that it is a Japanese name. Like they had an Emperor Kosho, and there's also a school of Buddhism, Kosho-ji, and then additionally a condiment named Yuzu Kosho. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
I don't remember where I read this, but someone linked it back to some Japanese American martial artist who I don't even remember what the story was, but like, yeah, developed his own like martial arts style or something, and it was somehow related to that. I know that's like really vague. I hope I can find what I'm talking about, but like, yeah, I don't know. I guess the point is like someone linked this to martial art, like actual real world martial arts in some way. They don't actually ever call Kosho a martial art on the show, but like anytime it's referenced online, it's not called a sport, it's called a martial art.
Weird.
Yeah.
What is like, I wonder where the definition is for like what is a martial art, you know?
Just like any form of like combat that's codified and
I guess, yeah.
And doesn't use, well, martial arts actually can use weapons, so some of them do. Yeah, I think it's just like any standardized fighting style that can be taught, you know? Because people are still making new martial arts.
It's true.
Yeah.
Just got to get that martial arts in there, I guess. Just got to get your own martial art.
Yeah, everyone should have their own.
Gotta do a gun. What is it? Gun kata? Shoot.
What?
Yeah, from the movie Equilibrium. Gun kata.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, there are martial arts that actually use swords. I once watched like this video of like this ancient Indian martial art, one of the first to have thought to have been developed in the world, that used like these. They were swords, but they kind of looked like those flexible saws. In that they were like the blade of the sword was flexible and like kind of, it almost made it look like a whip. And the way this martial art was done is like wild to watch. It's like it's not grounded whatsoever. It's like Dragon Ball Z, but like in real life. It's like these two guys fighting with these flexible swords, just jumping at each other, making these wild like leaps that don't even look humanly possible. And yeah, wow, it was a thing.
Apparently, gun kata is now been merged with gun fu.
Yeah, who's to say if martial arts can use blades, then who's to say that they can't use
guns?
Yeah.
Director John Woo originated the style that would later be called Gun Fu in the 1986 Hong Kong film A Better Tomorrow. The film launched the, quote, heroic bloodshed, unquote, genre in Hong Kong. Nice. Apparently, the success of The Matrix helped popularize and develop gun fu in the US.
I guess it's true. I guess The Matrix does kind of incorporate gunplay into martial arts.
Just good old Pertwee gunplay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, back to the story at hand.
Yeah, so
after the nonsense Kosho match, number 6's watch is busted.
Yeah, because number 100, number 2's right-hand man goes in and exchanges it for a broken one or something like that, or breaks it or something. Something.
I think he just takes the battery out, honestly. Biggest prank ever.
Like, number 6 goes to the village, like, clockmaker. He's like, hey, my watch is broken. He's like, hey, let me fix that for you. And he comes out like a few minutes later and he's like, hey, it's fixed. Number 6 is like, hey, thanks.
Hey, thanks, man.
Thanks, bro. Imagine, that's another one of those things that I can't imagine Patrick McGowan doing, like, adding to our ever-increasing list of things that we can't imagine Patrick McGowan doing. Is like saying bro.
Hey, bro. Yeah, God, can you... Oh, jeez. Could you imagine?
I can't really imagine any, like, person from the 60s using modern, like, words or terminology or slang.
Imagine Patrick McGowan saying, that's pretty wizard, Annie.
Oh, my God.
Imagine Patrick McGowan saying, that's lit, fam. I'm finna about to bust some kneecaps. I feel like I just lost brain cells saying that.
I feel like, I don't know, I know this is a tangent. I know we should just get back to explaining the episode and commenting on it. But like,
remember at the start of this episode when you said we wouldn't go on lots of tangents? Continue.
People say that The Prisoner is like one of the most cerebral and like intelligent shows out there, and I once thought that as well. But this watch through has made me see things in a new light. I feel like somehow I'm like, just again losing brain cells watching this show. Like there's something about it that just, I don't know, like rots your brain, makes you, I don't know, dumber.
Maybe it's not that it makes you dumber, it just makes you feel dumber because it's so out there.
Maybe, I don't know.
I mean, this is my first watch through, and I think it's pretty intelligent. But,
I don't know. Yeah, again, like, even phrasing it that way, now that I think about it, is weird. Like, how can a show be intelligent? Like, it's just a TV. It doesn't have a mind of its own. It doesn't have, like, I don't know. It's just weird.
Who knows?
Like, I have no idea.
Who knows? So number 6 takes the watch to the watchmaker to fix, and he's like, please fix my watch. And he's like, okay. Number 6 sees this weird thing on the table, and he's like, this is weird. And
I'm sure this isn't going to come up again in the plot.
The watchmaker grabs it from him, and he's like, it's just a toy. And number 6 then meets up with 53, and he's like, you know what, I think you're right. I think there is an assassination attempt because I don't think that's just a toy. It's a bomb! I actually think he says it's a radio transmitter to set off a bomb remotely. I think he says it is a bomb. But
yeah, and this is when number 53 reveals that the watchmaker is her father.
Yeah.
Which I never thought about that until now, but like, yeah, you could actually be related to someone else who's captured in the village, which would be a really weird scenario.
You just see your cousin Vinny, like, Vinny!
Oh my God.
Everyone's like, we don't use names here. bro. And also, like, imagine if Cousin Vinny's been keeping his name secret for the 6 months he's been captured in the village, and you just arrive. That would actually be like, if you were trying to find someone's name out, that would actually be like, if you could find one of their relatives, but you don't know their name, and you just bring one of their relatives there, that'd actually be a pretty good way to find out their name. I don't know how you would find their relative without knowing their name, but I don't know, genetics.
Yeah, why would the village be looking for someone's name, though? I mean, you think they would know all of that.
You would think they would know.
Yeah, true, maybe they don't.
Who knows? Who knows?
So, number 6 finally believes the assassination plot. So he goes to tell number 2 about it, which number 2 actually predicted this long ago. He's like, as soon as number 6 believes the assassination plot, he's going to come and tell me about it. Just you watch. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happens.
This is why I was super invested in this episode in the first half, because everything number 2 says comes true. He, like, knows number 6 to a T.
Yeah, well, they have that computer that...
But even before that, like, when the drug affects 53 and she goes down, and he knows exactly how long she'll be out for, and he knows exactly how number 6 is going to react, like, he just seems so remarkably in control of the whole situation.
Yeah, and he basically is. There was just basically one major flaw in his plan that he didn't foresee, which we're about to get to, actually. So number 6 comes into the room, and he's like, hey, like, there's an assassination plot against you. Number 2 is like, I forget what he says, but that's not even really important, because what is important is that they're recording all of this.
Yeah.
In this episode, this is actually more of a problem in today's society, but is considered less of one, which is that, like, you're on recording and on camera, like, depending on who you are and where you live and stuff, like, more than you're not. And,
it's true.
And that stuff can be manipulated against you.
Yep. We basically have no privacy anymore.
Yeah. Again,
or no privacy.
Again, it depends where you live. Like, I'm sure if you live in some, like, very remote location in the world, then, you know, your life is pretty much just the same as it was. People lived, like, thousands of years ago, but, yeah.
I mean, yeah. But if you live in, like, let's say a technologically developed world, then you basically have, like, no right to privacy the instant you step out of your house, even in your house.
Even in your house, like,
really.
yeah.
Unless you take extreme precautions.
Yeah, like...
And even then, like, it's gonna be difficult, you know?
Yeah, you'd have to go through lengths that, like, would not be considered normal to, like, have the amount of privacy that people had, like, in the 60s or 50s.
Yeah.
So what happens now is that there's a new number 2. Number 2 gets replaced by a different number 2 who implies that every other number 2 was just an interim number 2 and that he was the real number 2.
He implies this, and it seems kind of confusing at first, but if you actually read the note that they deliver to number 2 earlier in the episode, with the computer readout of what number 6 is going to do, the note is actually addressed not to number 2, it's addressed to acting number 2.
Mm-hmm.
Which kind of backs up this idea that presumably this number 2 has been number 2, at least for maybe the course of however long this episode takes place, but he's just on a vacation or a respite of some sort, and the other number 2s are just acting number 2s.
Yeah, which that would make even more sense that actually, never mind. I don't know what I was even going to say.
All right.
So when number 6 realizes this, he's like, hey, you know about that, like, assassination attempt against you, right? And number 2 is like, yeah, you mean the one that you, like, try and trick every number 2 into thinking is a real thing? Number six is
Number
like,
six is like,
wait,
what?
what? So he shows him this doctored footage of him telling a bunch of different number twos who we've never seen actually until now about the assassination attempt. He's like, yeah, you tell that to every number two. Like, there's no way I would believe you. But and this is all part of the previous number two's plan, we learn. But what the previous number two didn't foresee was that number six would go like, well, maybe they're just trying to trick you into thinking there's not an assassination attempt. Which you immediately, like, in a split second, you see the number two go like, whoa, what? Hold on here.
You're kind of wondering why so many number twos are just so quick to believe random offshoot comments that number six says.
Yeah, like, if you didn't believe the thing about the assassination attempt, like, yeah, I don't know, it's a bit odd that he would just believe, like, this obvious next thing that you would say after that. I don't know if that makes sense, but...
Yeah, especially since it kind of seems like the new number two is trying to make number six out to be like a jammer, so nothing he says should be taken at face value. But for some reason, I guess number two just believes this statement, but not the other one.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like how it's done. Like, you know, he gets, as soon as number six says this, he goes like, no, wait, that can't be true. And then he kind of, his paranoia takes over.
Why are all the number twos so paranoid?
Yeah, that's a good question.
They should get less paranoid people to be number two. Because clearly, I was going to say maybe it makes them good at their job, but that's clearly not true because none of them have succeeded really in breaking number six except very few successes like Dance of the Dead and Many Happy Returns.
Maybe you just have to...
It chimes a big band in a way.
Maybe you have to be somewhat paranoid to, like, work for the village or something.
Perhaps.
So I think now number 6 and number 53 go back to the watchmaker and we're like, hey, you can't do, he shows them like the mechanism of the bomb or whatever, and it's like remote detonated C3 or something. And they're like, hey, like, you can't do this. And he's like, well, watch me.
Yeah. Yeah, the bomb is like in the neck, the like ceremonial neckwear that number 2 wears, and we'll be wearing it Appreciation Day, which is in 2 days apparently.
Yeah, because the whole thing that's going on here is that number 2 is about to retire. It's about to pass the torch, pass his position on to his successor, the Darren Nesbitt number 2. And because apparently the village either, like number 6 says, doesn't want to pay pension, or just doesn't want this guy around anymore who knows all of their nefarious schemes. You know, the plan here is for whoever and again, I guess let's be clear, like whoever the Darren Nesbitt number 2 is communicating with on the phone, presumably number 1, is in charge of this plan. The plan is to take out number 2, as he resigns, as he passes the torch. I found this very confused. Like, it's actually not that convoluted of a plot. It's just delivered in a pretty confusing way, where they come up with this fake secret society called the Jammers, and you think it's real for like 95% of the episode, and you're like, wait, why are they working with like, what is happening? And then you're like, oh, okay, the Jammers aren't real. It was all just a plot type thing. Did you have that same experience?
Yes. My notes for the final 10 minutes of this episode were, wow, I really don't know how this is going to end. Wait, what's happening? Uh-oh, what's happening? And then my final note is just, huh.
Yeah, I think the episode wants you to realize the Jammers are fake, like, before you actually do, right? Like, I didn't realize that until at the very end, and I was like, wait, the only way this makes any sense is if the Jammers are not a real society.
Yeah, I kind of thought, so the way I thought this was going to go was that the new number 2 had constructed this whole plot, but he wasn't actually trying to kill the old number 2. What he was actually trying to do was to get number 6 to save number 2's life and to prove to him that he actually does care about, like, the village and the people in the village and the like administration of the village, and that's how they were gonna like break him this week, because he'd be like, haha, see, you do care about number 2.
That would have potentially been better, I think, than what actually happened.
Well, that's why I think this episode like just borders on greatness, because I think that would have been like such an abstract and yet at the same time ingenious way to like kind of ruin number 6 by like proving almost that he does care who number 2 is and like what's going on in the village, and that he puts up this facade of not caring about people or like being flippant about the administration, but proving that he actually does in some way care.
Yeah, that could have been really cool.
But they didn't go for that. Instead, what happens is the assassination attempt is actually real, and that they actually are going to kill the old number 2.
But not if number 6 has anything to say about it.
Number 6 saves him.
Because in a pretty long fight sequence, he saves the day. He gets the detonator device from the watchmaker who's watching all of this from the bell tower. He gives it to the old number 2, tells him that it's his insurance, because now the ceremonial necklace is around the new number 2's neck.
I kind of have to wonder, like, their plan to make a bomb go off in the necklace of the number 2 when he's standing around, like, multiple other people, including the new number 2.
Yeah, like, how big was this explosion going to be? Like,
it just wipes out both number 2s.
Wipes the village off the map.
It's like a miniature nuke.
God. Yeah, what if that was actually the plot here, is to make number 2 save the village, because the bomb was actually going to be big enough to wipe the village off the map completely, and number 6 inadvertently saves the village by saving number 2.
Wow. Yeah.
Anyway, that's how it ends, with number 6 going like, he tells the new number 2 that like he's sure the village is going to have just as ceremonial like an exit for him as well. And he walks away, and then you see his face get slammed in by the bars because he's still a prisoner.
Yep.
Yep. I didn't even know whether to classify this as a winner or a loss. Like, the conflict of this episode is so removed from either breaking number 6 or him potentially escaping that I had no idea what to call this episode.
Yeah, I have no idea. Because he doesn't really, like... I know Midnight Only calls it a win. But I don't really know if it's a win, because he doesn't find anything out. He doesn't... I mean, I guess he saves number 2, but that doesn't get him anything, because the number 2 was leaving and left the village completely. All it does is actually kind of get him on the bad side of the new number 2. But I can't really classify it as a loss either, because, again, like, number 2's plan was so far removed from number 6 that number 6 is just kind of almost just an interloper.
Yeah, he's just a part of number 2's plan. He's not really the centerpiece of it.
I mean, this is definitely the episode where number 6 is the most cog in the wheel that he is.
Yeah.
In any of them, right? Like, he's not even the main subject of the plot at all.
It didn't even really need to be him. It could have been anyone.
Just happened to be him because he's nosy and they knew he would involve himself in the plan eventually.
Yeah, imagine if this wasn't number 6. Imagine if it was just a completely different character, and like number 6 wasn't even in the episode.
That would have been wild.
But yeah, I guess if you're judging on like, does number 6 foil number 2's plan or fall victim to it, then yeah, I guess it is technically a win because he does foil the plan. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess from that aspect, sure, it's a win.
Similarly, like, I had no idea who number 1 could potentially be. I guess I would just say the guy on the other end of the phone, which is, for once in our dumb who is number 1 section, probably actually number 1.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, because, like, so much of this episode, again, is even removed from who number 1 is. Like, unless the cool, calm, collected new number 2 is number 1. But
No.
and I could see a case for that.
No, but he calls someone on the yellow phone repeatedly, and
Yeah, that's the thing. There is someone above him though, which is the biggest like evidence against that theory.
yeah.
So
Speaking of people,
Yeah.
this episode had some people in it, known as actors.
why do you have such a weird segue every week?
Look, we can't just introduce this thing in the same way every single week. We can't just...
We can, and we did before you started doing this.
That's why I put a stop to it, you know?
All right. I guess I can't stop you from stopping that.
Sure, so, yeah, I guess. I'll just take it away. I'll just take it away.
All right.
Like we mentioned before, we got Darren Nesbitt, the one, the only, as number 2, not the one, the only. Number 2-1, not number 2-2.
The new number 2 is how he's credited in the credits.
He was in The Adventures of Sir Lancelot, William Tell. He played a character called the Man in a show called Life in Danger. And then was also in Danger Man.
He's also in UFO and a movie called Where Eagles Dare that I've watched, which was pretty good.
Yeah, he was in Emergency Ward 10 as well, which a lot of the actors in this show were. And he played Tagana in Marco Polo, one of my all-time favorite villains. Check out Trust Your Doctor, a Doctor Who podcast, if you want over 300 episodes of Tagana, a minor character being like a meme and reoccurring again and again.
Because he was the first great villain Doctor Who had.
Yeah, he was. True.
Great individual villain, let's say. The Daleks were before that, but I would argue that the Daleks didn't really become iconic until The Chase.
Yeah, he was the first, like...
Or Dalek Invasion of Earth,
He was
actually.
the first, like, really just evil, bad person, like, human being on Doctor Who.
He had no redeeming features, like, at all. He was just a bad guy.
Yeah, that's why he's stuck in our memories for so long. It was only recently that we stopped mentioning him, like, every week. Probably within the last, I don't know, year and a half.
He's come back, though. A couple people have emailed us mentioning Tagana.
And yeah, Darren Nesbitt is a great actor. I really like the character that he brings to the new number 2 here.
Yeah, that's all the more impressive since I did actually forget to mention during the production notes segment that Nesbitt in his interview mentioned that like McGowan gave him no direction on like how his number 2 fit into the story at all. Like gave him no notes on like how the script worked, and apparently he was just really confused by the script the entire time they were filming, so he decided to just play number 2 however because he was getting no help from anyone.
Yeah, and he pulled it off. I think he's probably the best thing about this episode.
Yeah, I agree. As soon as this first scene was done, I was like, wow, I really love this number 2. He's one of my favorites.
Definitely. Yeah. Hats off to him, you know.
Hats off to Darren Nesbitt trying to save the episode single-handedly. So we have Annette Andre as the watchmaker's daughter. She was in The Baron, a show called Adam Adamant Lives, which I've heard of, a show called Prisoner Cell Block H, which I wrote down because it was funny, and then also The Avengers.
Yeah, I had her in Emerald Soup as well, which if you don't know what Emerald Soup is, it's oh god, it's so weird. It's like this weird like okay, obviously it's British. It's like this weird like soap opera thing. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. I have no idea what it is. Yeah.
Why do you bamboozle every episode now?
I don't know. I mean, I think I just started doing it because you like called it out. You're like, wow, you got me. And I was like, maybe I can pull this off every week. She was in The Avengers as well. I don't know if you mentioned that.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
So, who's
I have
next?
Andre von Gisegem. Probably not correct
Uh,
in pronunciation.
yeah, I'm glad you took that one because I knew I was going to butcher that name.
He played the old number two. He's been in what the hell? Okay, never mind. He's been in Downing Street. He's been in Destination Downing Street. That's what the show's called. Death of a Ghost,
Mm-hmm.
Amelia. He was in For Whom the
Mm-hmm.
Bell Tolls adaptation, I guess,
Oh yeah, I
or
saw
just
that.
something else called For Whom the Bell Tolls. I don't really know what this TV show is. Coronation Street, The Saint. He was in Law and Order later on in his career,
Yep.
and a bunch of other stuff as well.
Mm-hmm. I've got Mark Eden as number 100. He was in Coronation Street, Poirot, Doctors, Casualty, Doctor Zhivago, Zed Cars, The
Oh
Saint,
my
The
god!
Avengers, and he was Marco Polo in Marco Polo. This is like a Marco Polo reunion on this episode of The
Yeah,
Prisoner. We've got Tagana as the main sort of villain. We've got Marco Polo as the guy who's teamed up with the main villain. That's kind of weird, but it's a reunion of everyone's favorite original missing Doctor Who
and we
serial.
also have Kublai Khan. Martin Miller, who plays the Watchmaker, was also Kublai Khan in Marco Polo. And he was also in
Yeah.
Danger Man, The Saint, The Avengers. He was also in Emergency Ward 10, which a few of the other actors on this episode were. And he's our person of the week who died shortly after this episode aired. He died in August of 1969 via a heart attack. Or
Damn.
so is reported.
So is reported? Well. Well, I'm glad you found our actor who died suspiciously close to the episode for the week because I didn't look that man up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I'm
that's
trying to
all I
think, like,
got.
is there anything else I have? And no, there's really not.
I already talked about how I thought this episode would be like better if it had been like trying to break number 6 by proving that he actually did care about number 2 in some way, but
Yeah, that could have been really cool. I think what we got was good too, though.
no, I like what we got. I just think that I might have liked that better.
Hmm.
I don't know if I would have liked it better because you can never know with something that doesn't exist, but hey.
Yeah, that's one for the fan fictions, I guess. I feel like it would be really like a draining experience to read Prisoner fan fiction.
Probably. You
Yeah.
should try it. Well, no email this week as far as I'm aware. I'm going to double check that actually. Did Drano say anything interesting in our group chat? Probably
I don't know. I
not.
haven't checked my texts in like days.
No, okay, he didn't. Yeah, no email. Yeah, so we have no email this week to respond to.
We did have a
So
quick
nothing on my
Facebook
front.
comment about Checkmate. We wondered in that episode whether your enjoyment of the episode depended on whether or not you like chess, just as a joke, I guess. And Boz on Facebook replied that he did enjoy chess, or he does enjoy chess, and he also enjoys Checkmate, the episode. And probably also like the state of Checkmate, like when you are the one checkmating, probably also enjoys that. And yeah, that's it.
Well, that's it. Nothing else to say. That's a bummer. I'd like more plot points on, or yeah, more evidence points on whether people like chess and like checkmate. You know, might like to make a full regression. I'd like to make a full scientific
Yeah, so
analysis.
send us in your opinions. on chess.
Do it soon. Do it now. Do it right now at thedoctor@decadentvegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on It's Your Funeral. I almost said maple syrup because I have a Wikipedia page on maple syrup open. You can find us on YouTube at Decadent Vegetable. Find us on pretty much any podcast platform at Inevitable, a classic sci-fi podcast. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast and follow us on Twitter. And next time, we're going to be watching A Change of Mind. But until then, the end.